Yes, I didn't want to confuse anybody too much, or maybe even myself, so I didn't mention that, but I was thinking of that as I was saying it, right? That this might be a potential solution for this philosophical conundrum. Could God create a rock that he can't pick up, right? Now, the reason that this is a false conundrum, it's not a real problem, even though it sounds very real because like, oh, it's a conflict, is that let's deconstruct it for a second. Why is it a problem, right? It would appear to be a problem because God can do anything. Now, if he can do anything, presumably he can create an experience where he cannot do that thing, right? Because that's part
That's
of
the nature
anything. So
of separation.
we're getting there. We're getting there. But yes, that's the answer. That's exactly the answer. That's why it's a solution. But the reason why people think it's a problem is because these two things would appear to be contradictory, right? Because here's God, and here's a thing that he must be able to do, but at the same time but then he can't do it. So like, what the heck is that about? The reason why what we're speaking about is a solution is because we never say anything about Hashem himself. We don't know what he is. We don't, even saying that God can do everything is already limiting. It's beyond doing everything. We don't even have concepts for that which is beyond our words. What we can speak about is the manifestation of God's will, which is not him, the manifestation of his will. That means to say that God can do everything. And that everything includes creating a realm within which, in accordance with his will, there is a rock that he cannot move. And that's not contradictory to God not being able to move that rock. Because of course he could move that rock. But he can also create a reality in which he cannot move that rock. And that's not limiting because we're attributing to his will and not to himself. With regard to himself, we don't even know what a rock is or what the word he is or could not. Or these concepts fail when we speak about the endless infinite oneness of everything. Now, how that relates to us and the way that we're speaking about it now is that God is infinite. The capacity for the experience of finitude within the infinite is, like we just said, God's will to express finite. So now that means that God became finite, literally? No. God generated an illusory reality within which sparks of his consciousness that we call human beings and created both in body and soul could experience what would appear to be, oh my gosh, an experience of limitation. And yet, and yet, and yet, and yet, because it's a revelation of the infinite, we have to find a philosophical and theological way of experiencing that finitude, not as a contradiction to Hashem's infinity, but actually part and parcel of it. In which case, it's both finite and infinite at the very same time. But just to clarify, let's use more precise terminology. To talk about Hashem destroying and nullifying the world, and then things will really be one, is to miss the illusory nature of our reality. We would say instead is to undo the illusion, which means what we would say in Kabbalistic terminology, to remove the tzimtzum, to remove the constriction, the contraction, whatever it is that God did, which is a total what's called a pella. It's unknowable. It's not understandable. The paradox, to undo that, strip away the illusion, and then there would be no experience of finitude. Can I tell you why that's impossible? I'll tell you why that's impossible. Because that itself is predicated on, oh, there might be a time when God would remove the tzimtzum. What's the problem, of course? Time itself is part of the illusion. So you understand? So when we reach beyond it, we really have to go in with humility to know that words fail. Words fail. This moment that we are having as a chabura now, on this day, this time, is both a real moment that will only ever happen once, and it never happened before and it never happened afterwards, and it's also infinite. It is quite also happening eternally. along with everything else that ever happened and ever will happen. And that itself, meaning that kind of thinking, is itself, it's an illusion of like, oh, that's what eternity must mean. And it still doesn't. Because that's still within, oh, it lasts forever. Like what's forever though? We have no idea. So it is happening at the same time. Wait, but you already said the word time. You understand? These are all limitations. And that's the fundamental wall that we come up against as human beings. But through Torah and mitzvos, we stand with one foot here and one foot there. And that's called truth. And that's called one. We're not separating it. We cannot separate it. What's called in the Zohar Kadosh, Ihu v'gamoi chadhu. In that aspect, God is one with his will. What we mean is our experience of him. And all we can experience is what he's revealed, and all he's revealed is what he wanted to reveal. So that's what we mean when we speak about his will. It's not separating him from his will. But again, because we're playing a game, we're going from his perspective back to our perspective. What we mean is we can only ever speak about him, even him in his oneness, his perspective of it, from the way that we understand it. You see? So even when we speak about his perspective, it's we who are speaking about his perspective. That comes with limitations, right? Meaning it doesn't relate to the true nature of it. It's not ontic in nature. It doesn't relate to a true separation. But we have to come back to our perspective of it.